There's a lot of buzz about this car, and it's no wonder because the Santro was the car that really created the success story of Hyundai in India, and it was a runaway success when it was first launched. Well, this new hatch, the Santro, Hyundai have got a lot riding on it, and can it recreate the magic is what we've got to find out. When Hyundai announced this name for its latest hatchback, everyone expected the tall boy silhouette that made it so distinct. Yes, it is still tall, but it's also a lot longer and wider, so it doesn't look as upright as before. In fact, it bears a strong resemblance to the Grand i10 and shares similar swept-back headlamps, Hyundai's new Cascade grille, which looks a little too large on this car, and fog lamps that are integrated into the grille. The sides get a lot of creases and shadow lines, and there's a reverse arrow over the front wheel arch. There's more detailing like the shoulder line that dips down over the rear door and additional creases over the rear wheel arch. All of these come together to make it a more dramatic side profile. The rear has a simple set of tail lamps, but once again a blackened out area under the bumper mimics a diffuser and houses reflectors. It adds a little lift to the otherwise simple rear. Overall, it's a smart little hatch, and like most Hyundais, it will appeal to most. The interior of the Santro looks really well appointed for a car of its class. We've got the optional version which has these funky green highlights along the AC, the central console, the gear lever area. But the other variants have a dual tone dash which has classy gold highlights along the similar areas. The central console, along with its 7-inch touchscreen, grabs your attention. They're crisp, clean dials that give you fuel economy and, of course, your trip meter. The Santro is also well equipped, getting features like Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, MirrorLink and voice recognition. There is also a reverse camera, which is a first in the segment, with sensors that tell you of your proximity. There are also power adjust wing mirrors, one USB port up front, cup holders, a large glove box with a storage ledge above it, and rear aircon vents. While it does seem pretty packed, you also notice other areas where they have skimped, like the Hyundai logo on the steering wheel, which is finished in grey plastic and not chrome, the lack of height adjustment for the front seats, or any adjustment for the steering. And you need to open the boot from the outside or else reach for the lever in the driver's footwell. Finally, it's things like the fixed headrests front and rear and the lack of a door lock or unlock button. Also, the window buttons are placed below the gear lever in a place where you would have to take your eye off the road to find them. They're also not backlit, which makes them harder to access at night. Now, a critical area for India is here, the rear seat, and this is where the old Santro really scored well. This one's not quite as tall, but it is still extremely spacious. In fact, I think it is the most spacious in its segment. Loads of legroom, nice wide seat, and there is a lot of headroom here as well. The seats themselves extremely comfortable, good under thigh support. But really, the kicker here is the inclusion of rear AC vents. They're small, but they do the job well. For a compact car, it has a large enough boot, and you could easily fit in a couple of trolley bags. The rear seat has no split, but will fully flip down to open up additional room should you need it. Well, it's finally time to get going, and first up I noticed that the seating position is nice and high. Visibility all around is really good, and I'm extremely comfortable, but this steering position is a bit low, and without any steering adjust or seat height adjust, a taller person might not find it as easy as me to get comfortable. Though this is a new generation platform, the engine is not new. It's the same 1.1-litre Epsilon engine that was in the old Santro Zing and in the original i10. In this latest state, it makes 69 HP and 99 Nm of torque. This is on par with Maruti's 1-litre K10 engine, but lower than Tata's 1.2 Revotron. The 20.3 km per litre RI-rated fuel economy figure is lower than both rival engines as well. Although it's the same figure whether you opt for a manual or an AMT in your Santro. That's right, you can have this car with a 5-speed AMT. It's Hyundai's first attempt ever at one, which is why we thought we'd give the AMT a try first. You don't feel that long pause and sudden jerk when you're shifting up gears, and even downshifts come extremely smoothly as well. The only time you feel that long pause is between first and second. But I still have to say that this is one of the smoothest AMT boxes that I've driven. The creep mode is extremely good as well, and even the manual mode functions like a manual would. So I have to say Hyundai have done a really good job, and all signs point to this being the slickest AMT around. After that, we shifted back into the manual for the rest of the drive. In the manual, the clutch is light and easy, and the gearbox in a typical Hyundai manner is also smooth and slots in well. This engine doesn't exactly leap off the line, but it pulls well in a nice, clean, linear manner. And it really picks up the pace after about 2000 RPM. But what's really nice about this engine is that you can be a very lazy driver. I'm going to put it into third. Now look, I can come down and I'm going to really slow the pace down. So I come down to even slower than this. So I'm really crawling 1000 RPM. All I have to do is put my foot down, and as long as I'm gentle with the throttle, it just picks up a pace and gets a move on. So driving in city traffic is really going to be a breeze. Now, when you are out on open stretches of road and you need an urgent overtake or you need to demand a sudden burst of power, then you will need to shift down a gear. Now, out on the highway at higher speeds, the Santro feels quite stable and planted, doesn't quite feel like a small car. And the steering that's light and easy in the city actually feels consistent even around corners. The ride quality of the Santro is surprisingly good too. At low speeds, it masks the road imperfections like a bigger car, and at higher speeds, it feels composed as well. To put the new Santro into perspective, it's important to remember how much the market has grown since the original Santro. This is no longer an entry-level car and not a rival for the Alto or the Kwid. In fact, its rivals are the Celerio and the incredibly well-priced Tiago. Hyundai has made some compromises to keep costs in check, like using the older generation engine and some other minor cost-cutting measures inside and out. But these don't really affect the consumer much, and what they've done is bring a lot of wow factor to the table, which is what this segment was seriously lacking. It's got a bold design, it's got really well-finished interiors, it scores well on space and comfort too. But the real game changer is the host of segment-first features that make it more desirable than its competitors. The well-featured touchscreen is of course its crowning glory, but there's also stuff like the rear camera and sensors that make you feel like you've gone a segment higher. But it's not just that. The fact that this car is just so easy and effortless to drive in most conditions is what makes it a very compelling city car to buy, whether we're talking of manual or AMT.